The first season of Percy Jackson and the Olympians came to an end, but the show made quite a lot of changes from The Lightning Thief. So let's look at the biggest ones. The first major change from the book was that we got to see more of Percy's childhood in flashbacks. Right in the first episode, Percy saw a monster, and we also got more details about why exactly his mother named him Perseus. Later, we also saw Percy and Sally in a swimming class, where Percy is afraid of water. This change allowed us to see Percy from a different angle and how he evolved into the person he was in the show during the main quest. Percy's fight with Alecto was also adapted differently from the book. In the show, we could see the fight happening in the street with him already possessing the sword, Riptide. In the book, however, Percy is in the museum when the fight breaks, but Mr. Brunner, also known as Chiron, interrupts it to hand Percy the sword. The fight was also more fast-paced in the show. In the book, the fates who knit the destiny of people in Greek mythology appear pretty early on. After the fight with Alecto, Percy sees 3 women knitting a massive piece of yarn. It's also Percy who sees them cut the thread. In the show, the fates appear much later, and it's Annabeth who sees them cut the thread in episode 5, where she and Grover are waiting for Percy to get out of the river. The limited length of the show is the reason why the audience observes far less from Percy's time at Yancey Academy. In the novel, Percy happens to eavesdrop on a conversation between Grover and Mr. Brunner, where they discuss Percy's fate after Alecto's attack. Another thing the fans notice is that Percy's stepfather Gabe is less violent than in the book, where it's heavily hinted that Gabe is violent towards Percy's mom, Sally. He notices that his mother flinches when Gabe raises his hand. In the show, he's more like comedic relief, with Sally having more say in their life. In the episode, we could see Gabe opening the mystery books with Medusa's head and turning into stone. In the book, however, it's Sally's choice to turn him into a statue to get rid of him and also to profit from selling the stone sculpture. The show is more fast-paced than the books because of limited screen time, and it could be felt during Percy's time in the camp. In the show, he spent a short time there, while in the book, Percy was there for 2 weeks before he was sent on the quest. Interestingly, Argus, the security director of the camp, is not mentioned in the show at all. In the book, there was also a scene from the camp where Percy was training with Luke with a sword. But in the show, the scene came as a flashback in episode 8 before Percy realized that Luke was the thief. During his short time in the camp, Percy was also claimed by Poseidon after he defeated Clarisse. In the book, however, Percy is attacked by a hellhound which is led to the camp, and only after Chiron defeats the monster is Percy claimed by his father. The concept of glory was also changed in the adaptation. All training, quests, and victories against monsters are part of their glory, which then makes them more feared by monsters and more interesting and noticeable to the gods. We can't find anything like that in the books. While preparing for the quest, Percy is allowed to choose his partners, and he chooses Annabeth without hesitation. In the novel, Annabeth is the one who volunteers because she waited for the opportunity for 7 years. What's more, many details were left out concerning the quest. In the book, Percy's chosen for it because he's having dreams about his father and Zeus fighting. In the show, the first big fight happens on the bus with Alecto while the trio is trying to get to the west. The fight is far less dramatic in the adaptation than in the source material, where there are all 3 Furies and Percy destroys the whole bus while fighting them. Their next stop was in Aunt M's establishment, where the adaptation made massive changes in Medusa's character and appearance from the books. Medusa is far less angry and bitter, and in some moments the audience can sympathize with her, which doesn't really happen in the books. The adaptation also changes the way Percy defeats her. He and Annabeth cooperate and put her hat on Medusa's head when Percy removes the head from her body, which also doesn't happen in the book. After escaping Medusa, the trio faced another challenge, the mother of monsters Echidna and her baby Chimera, who was sent after the trio by Zeus. In the adaptation, Echidna reveals herself and her intentions on the train, which is far sooner than in the book, where Percy finds out on the top of the arch. Another thing that the production changed was the backstory of the arch. In the show, it's Athena's temple, which is supposed to be a safe place for demigods, but Athena doesn't give protection to Annabeth because she embarrassed her in front of the gods. That doesn't happen in the books. Episode 5 also brought a lot of changes, where the major one would be Grover staying in the restaurant with Ares, while Percy and Annabeth go to the Waterland to retrieve Ares' shield. While the duo is risking their lives, Grover is trying to manipulate Ares Ares, who wants rather successfully. In the book, however, Grover goes to the Waterland together with Annabeth and Percy. Besides missing Grover, the amusement park plays out differently in the show. We could see Hephaestus's tragic story and Percy trying to sacrifice himself for the greater good and sit on the throne. While being trapped, Annabeth talks to Hephaestus, who lets them go away, both at the end. In the book, they never meet Hephaestus, and there is no golden throne, but there are mechanical spiders and live TV for the amusement of Olympus. In the adaptation, Percy is already aware that his mother is alive in the underworld thanks to Grover. But in the books, it's Ares who reveals that fact to Percy just before they're about to leave for Vegas. The next episode also made changes in its storytelling. For one, it wasn't yet revealed that Percy can talk to horses because of his father, which in the book finds out during the ride to Vegas because of the zebra present. What's more, while talking to Luke, they concluded that Clarice is the lightning thief, which doesn't happen in the books. The whole casino scene also played out differently in the book. In the show, the trio already knows that the casino is dangerous and that they can't eat anything because they would lose track of time. This doesn't happen in the book, and Percy is the first one who realizes that they need to escape. Another thing is that the show created a brand new character, Satyr Augustus, whom they met in the casino, which doesn't happen in the book, but it sets up Grover's future quest, looking for Pan. Ares sent the trio to look for Hermes, who is in the casino, to try to persuade him to take them to Hades. Hermes' appearance in the Lotus Casino doesn't happen in the books, so consequently the whole thing plays out differently. Even their escape from the casino, where instead of taking Hermes' car, they pay for a taxi with their unlimited credit cards. But Hermes' appearance gives us more backstory to Luke's life, which is important because of his villain arc. Also, at the end of episode 6, the trio learns that they missed the summer solstice deadline and the war was inevitable at that point. In the book, however, Percy finishes the quest right on time. Book Percy always knew that it wouldn't be his father appearing on the beach, but a Nereid, who gave him only 3 pearls to get back from the underworld instead of 4, as we could see in the adaptation. Episode 7 started with Percy running into his brother Krusty and his waterbeds. In the show, Percy immediately knows the man, which erases the threat from happening. They defeat him quite quickly. In the book, the situation is far more dangerous as both Annabeth and Grover almost become victims of Krusty's beds, and Percy saves them by outsmarting him. The location of the enter to Underworld is located under Krusty's shop, while in the book, it's in DOA Recording Studio, where they meet Karen, who is responsible for getting souls on the other side of River Styx. Even though Karen appeared in the show, it was a very short meeting. The Underworld is dangerous, but the show made a point to make the 3-headed dog named Cerberus much more aggressive than he's in the book, where he comes back to play a little bit more with Annabeth. When it comes to the trip to the Underworlds, in the book, Annabeth doesn't leave so soon from the Underworld, but she's with Grover and Percy for the whole time until they escape using the pearls. The confrontation with Hades plays out differently in the book, where the god of the Underworld is much more temperamental and angrily demands to have his helmet returned, and the trio runs away before the god can end their lives prematurely. In the show, Percy quickly concludes that the whole thing is Kronos' fault, which makes Hades offer him and Sally sanctuary in the Underworld. Another thing that was made just for the show was the meeting of Sally and Poseidon, which was supposed to show us that Poseidon cares about his son. This doesn't happen in the books. The season finale included the fight between Ares and Percy. The fight happened similarly in the book, but with many witnesses present. When it comes to the confrontation between Zeus and Percy, Poseidon is there to save his son from his brother's wrath. Because of the missed deadline, the brothers were preparing for the war, but Poseidon surrendered to protect his son, which doesn't happen in the books. After the meeting at Olympus, the book immediately goes to check whether Hades was true to his word and returns Sally back to her apartment, and there he has the last confrontation with Gabe. In the show, Percy sees his mother only after he visits the camp. The whole reveal scene with Luke being the traitor plays out differently in the book. While in the show, the fight with swords, in the book, Luke unleashes a poisonous scorpion, which should end Percy's life, and later Percy tells what happened to Charon and Annabeth. In the show, Annabeth was present during the fight, which made her realize far sooner that Luke was really the traitor.